galera fica com medo de que o Dugin vai me usar pra dominar o mundo e destruir o Ocidente. Cara, eu fiz o que eu posso. Eu não acho que aconteceu isso daí. Eu não acho que isso daqui foi uma live disso. Mas, é isso aí. O Platinho tá empolgado. É claro que eu tô empolgado. Eu tô com o maior filósofo da Rússia na minha frente.
Tradition is the key word. The Americans try to submit you, try to make you a kind of slaves to their ideology, to their LGBT.
They don't only try. They make it. Yes. Maybe liberalism is the Antichrist.
Liberalism is absolute evil, and that geopolitically, this evil coincides with the sea power.
I think you are not a big. I mean, most people are not a big fan of Slavoj Žižek. I think he's a strange person, but I like him. I think he's interesting, and he also has a book called Absolute Fragile, where he says this: religious people should not be enemies of communists, precisely because they have the same enemy. The biggest enemy of a traditionalist and of a communist is liberalism, is capital, mammon, I call it, the money, the demon of gold.
Russia is not expansionist. Alliance between left and right against the liberalism. So that doesn't matter anymore. Either you belong to the left or to the right. If you fight against liberalism, against big capital, against capitalism, against hegemony, Western hegemony. I have spoken with Mr. Brzezinski, one of the main Atlanticist geopolitician of the United States, and I have asked him, you have promised, you personally and the West have promised to Mr. Gorbachev not to expand NATO East. And he has responded, oh, we have tricked him.
I think he attributes to William Blake, the first one who did this. I think was William Blake with the painting. Where do we stand?
British imperialists, they have foreseen this necessity to transmit the center of sea power from British Empire to the United States, and they have made this transition. So now United States, under the rule of the globalists and Atlanticists, it is the kind of the center of the sea power.
And but this is exactly what Webster Tarpley talks about, that Venice was the center, and at least according to his research, he saw that all the money from Venice was being shipped to England because Napoleon was invading. So they decided, so it's the same people, they decided to bring Venice to England, and then they decided to bring England to the United States. But maybe it's the same. It's the same Leviathan people. Why did Germany betray Russia in the Second World War? I wanted then to start to talk about the metaphor of Behemoth versus Leviathan. I saw that you went to the Fifth Element interview. It was even interesting when you said something, you know, when you change positions in the chair because you get a little bit uncomfortable with what you just said. There was a time where you said we have to defeat the Leviathan. But I remember in Job that we cannot defeat the Leviathan, that not even Behemoth can defeat the Leviathan. Only God can defeat the Leviathan. Do you have something to tell me? Could you expand the metaphor for me?
So thank you. That is a very serious topic and very profound and deep. It is not just my own creations, all that. I'm following the line of geopolitics. This science was initiated by Halford Mackinder, by Anglo-Saxons, and the main principles were elaborated by them, by Anglo-Saxons. So in order to understand the great game between British Empire and Russian Empire, and after that between West and capitalist West and socialist East, they have developed a kind of explanation, a system of explanation that fitted very well to many other levels of understanding of civilizations, the history, the logic of development, different kind of developments, so the ideas of progress. So it was genius, but in origin were British people. So Mackinder, Speakman, who came to United States during 30s. So that was the idea to explain very shortly, briefly, the main logic of opposition between two kinds of civilizations. Between civilizations of sea power, based on colonialism, but as well based on the liquid society of
internationalism. There's so many layers.
So that is exactly. So from the start, from the beginning of this science, there was very unexplored, very important unexplored dimension of this metaphor.
Yes.
Sea and the land, and on the other side, there was a kind of land power fixed with tradition, with traditional values, unchangeable, something constant. So, but that this metaphor, the sea against the earth, was something like the time against eternity, or the becoming against the permanence, and that was explored by German thinker. Not
in Carl Schmitt used this metaphor only.
Carl Schmitt, exactly. So Carl Schmitt, that he developed these intuitions of Anglo-Saxon geopolitics school, and Carl Schmitt have given to this metaphor this ontological dimension, and he has introduced and explained in the depth the idea of sea power, land power, and he has compared. First of all, Carl Schmitt has compared Leviathan and Behemoth with land power and sea power. So he has discovered the same vision in the ancient Bible symbols. And so there is the beast of the earth and there is the beast of the sea. They are confronting, they are fighting, as in the book of Job in the Bible. And that was a kind of the giving to this metaphor, to giving to this geopolitical vision additional dimension, ontological dimension, eschatological, biblical dimension, and that was made by Carl Schmitt.
I think he attributes to William Blake, the first one who did this. I think was William Blake with the painting, and he attributed Leviathan with the atheists. And where do we stand?
Interesting. So I agree absolutely. William Blake has developed this biblical metaphor, and that was after that used citing exactly Bible by Carl Schmitt. So the description of Carl Schmitt of both figures of the geopolitics coincide with much larger context. For example, tradition against modernity, because we see in land power tradition, in sea power modernity. Exactly. Land power, that is Behemoth, and sea power is Leviathan. And time and eternity, constance, synchronicity, and diachronicity in becoming. So that the conflict between sea power and land power obtained during the development of this first initial intuition in kind of eschatological confrontation between two global power. And Russia and Eurasia, Heartland, was from very beginning put as Behemoth, as the part of land power, as Heartland, the center of land power.
Which leads me to a question that I wanted to make to you, like as a Brazilian man to a Russian, more intelligent and wise than me. Why did Germany betray Russia in the Second World War.
That was illogical. That was against geopolitical logic, the frame, because German, being Greenland in the geopolitics, there are three zones. Heartland, that is land power, the core of the land power. Sea power, Anglo-Saxon world in last centuries before, as you have just said, Amsterdam, Venice,
It was Venice, Amsterdam,
Carthage,
England,
absolutely,
United
Athens
States.
against Sparta, exactly. But in the last centuries, the core of the sea power were Anglo-Saxons. First, British Empire. After that, during 20th centuries, that was United States of America.
Do you think the
And
British still control the Americans, or
no,
the Americans
no,
already control?
no, absolutely. I think that there was the big shift of the center of the Atlanticism or sea power from British Empire to United States, organized and prepared by people like Cecil Rhodes, but the shift was serious. So British imperialists, they have foreseen this necessity to transmit the center of sea power from British Empire to the United States, and they have made this transition. So now United States, under the rule of the globalists and Atlanticists, it is the kind of the center of the sea power. And
But this is exactly what Webster Tarpley talks about, that Venice was the center, and at least according to his research, he saw that all the money from Venice was being shipped to England because Napoleon was invading. So they decided, so it's the same people, they decided to bring Venice to England, and then they decided to bring England to the United States. But maybe it's the same. It's the same Leviathan people.
Leviathan people
and maybe it's the same since forever.
Exactly. Have decided to transmit Venice to Amsterdam first, and after that from Amsterdam, from this Protestant reform to the England, from the England to the United States. So
it's a good point. Let me tell the people. Maybe many people don't know this, but capitalism during feudalism starts with commerce places, and in Holland was where it all started. In Amsterdam, around there, like the Leviathanic spirit that took over medieval times and became capitalism starts at Holland.
So that is absolutely correct description of the historical geopolitical logic of capitalism and development of capitalism. So, but what is important? So between heartland, that is land power, and sea power as global capitalist system, there is always rimland. Rimland, it is intermediary zone, and Europe as such, and as a whole, and Middle East, and the India, and the Iran, and Far East, all that represent a kind of rimland for the heartland, the zone of the conflict between sea power and land power. And the main mistake, main error of Germany was to consider Germany as a part of the rimland that could become heartland in union with Russia. So the key problem was Russia. If German would decide in favor of Russia, they would be heartland. So the main error, geopolitical error, not ideological, geopolitical error or mistake of Germany was to consider only Germany as heartland. But that was just the part of the rimland. If they would make choice in favor of heartland, land power, they should make, as Haushofer suggested, a kind of alliance, continental alliance with Russia. But they have preferred to be between land power and sea power, and they have lost from very beginning, because that was based on the miscalculation and ignorance of geopolitics. Against all the efforts of Karl Haushofer that wanted to say to Hitler, either you choose sea power, and that means the alliance with British and Americans, but that would mean that Greenland chooses sea power. And if Molotov-Ribbentrop pact agreement would be accepted seriously, that would mean that.
But that is an issue. How can Russia trust the West if, as my understanding goes, the West, NATO, literally has no word. They have no word because they said, okay, you stop Soviet Union and we don't expand NATO. 5 years later, they expand NATO. I mean, oh no, but my pact was with Soviets. You're not Soviets, so whatever. What? How can you trust someone like this? So if I'm Russia, I'm like, you cannot trust the West. You cannot trust NATO, at least NATO. Maybe someone in the West, but NATO you cannot. So I see naturally people are afraid of the alliance between Russia and Brazil, but I think it's obviously what we need. Some people think, oh, but Russia wants to dominate the world. Everybody wants to dominate the world if the world is given to us. But clearly the United States is the boot in everyone's face. So I think we are more allied by the circumstances.
Russia is not expansionist. And for example, I have spoken with Mr. Brzezinski, the one of the main Atlanticist geopolitician of the United States, and I have asked him, you have promised, you personally and the West, you have promised to Mr. Gorbachev not to expand NATO east. And he has responded, oh, we have tricked him. We have tricked him. So how we can be confidential in the power that openly recognizes that the trick is just possible? So it is the part of
and
the
even admits they even admit then. But
so,
the version that I knew was that they said, oh no, but the pact was with the Soviet Union, so we're not Soviet Union, so it's okay. But it's
still, was a kind of cover operation. But the essence was, we have tricked him. We have tricked him, and we will trick you more and more and more once you believe us. But concerning Brazil, so that is very interesting. That is another point. So, in the traditional situation, there was a kind of bipolarity, two poles, land power and sea power. But now we have somewhat different geopolitical map. That maybe it is the first serious change in the geopolitics as the science from the very beginning, from the start of this beginning of this science, of this method. So I call that distributed heartland. So now Russia cannot afford, practically, politically, ideologically, in any senses, cannot afford anymore to be the sole, the only heartland. So we could not re-establish bipolarity, dualism. So heartland Russia, Anglo-Saxon world, all the Western humanity, or the humanity under control of Anglo-Saxons, and that all. So we could not afford that anymore. So we need to find new strategy. And new strategy is precisely distributed heartland. For example, in this vision, Russia is not only heartland. Russia is one of the heartlands. So we need to think in heartlands, and in this nomenclatura of heartlands, there is Chinese heartland, there is Indian heartland, there is Islamic heartland, African heartland, and there is Latin America heartland. Not only Brazil, not only Argentina, but united South America as a great space, as Professor Buela calls that. It is he calls that ecumena, Latin America ecumena. So that is big space and Latin American heartland as the core of independent civilization. And in that sense, you are us, not having nothing to do with Russia. no, we don't supply some ideologies, some values. We are Orthodox, you are Catholics mostly. So we don't want dominate.
I think you are not the big. I mean, most people are not a big fan of Slavoj Žižek. I think he's a strange person, but I like him. I think he's interesting, and he also has a book called Absolute Fragile, where he says this: religious people should not be enemies of communists, precisely because they have the same enemy. The biggest enemy of a traditionalist and of a communist is liberalism, is capital, mammon. I call it the money, the demon of gold.
Personally, I don't like too much Slavoj Žižek, but in that concrete point, I agree with him absolutely. So there is the main enemy, the major enemy, and when the right forgets this main enemy, that is global capitalism, the structure, because great capital destroys the tradition, destroys the values, destroys the humanity. The big capital is something, is origin of destruction of any kind of sacred basis of civilization.
It's in the Communist Manifesto. Everything that is sacred will be evaporated. I mean, this is something that I try to teach. My public is mostly right-wing, but I try to explain to them how Marx was right. He told everybody, say, oh, communists destroyed the world. My friends, look at Eastern Europe. They are more preserved than the capitalist societies because it's liberalism, not communism, because it's capital. And clearly the ones who were infected by capital were degenerated, but those who were preserved a bit, the traditions were more alive. So I think that is proof to the left that they should understand, well, maybe he's right. Maybe tradition is not evil. Maybe tradition is better than liberalism, which is something that now they don't accept. So I hope your haters complain enough that Pepe Escobar can call you to Brasil 247, and then you can talk to the leftists, because they have a lot to talk to you, in my view.
My opinion, I agree with you. Pepe Escobar is my good, very good and close.
I like him a lot.
He is left-wing, I am traditionalist, but we coincide in all the points, all aspects of our analysis coincide, not only in general feature, but including to the smallest details. So, because for the real left-wing men, the main enemy is capitalism as bourgeois.
Exactly.
But the same is valid for the real right man. Liberalism is the common enemy for those who fight for justice and for those who fight for traditional values. So I suggest you, Brazilian people, to read the books of Alain de Benoit, the greatest living European thinker. He's somehow from the right, but he has arrived maybe first to the same.
They called him right. He didn't call himself right.
Absolutely. His enemies call him new right, but he himself is transcendental for right and left the division. So that is very important. He has arrived to first among everybody to the conclusion that right and left wing should be united in fight against liberalism, because
he was the first. That's good to know. I didn't know. I made a video about him because he has this idea that human rights are the excuse for Americans to just let's bomb human rights on everybody, and then, oh, how can they live? They have no human rights. And then you think, what is human rights? It's just a bunch of papers. And then you have, in Brazil, we have like 50% of the population arrested. They were not even charged yet. Many of them are in jail for like 5 years. And if they were convicted, they would serve 3 years. They weren't even judged yet, but they are already 5 years in prison. And they rot there and nobody cares. So
exactly. But Alain de Benoit is deeper than that. Only it is one of
he's really good.
his 100 books. So he is the main thinker of modern Europe that has suggested seriously and fundamentally alliance between left and right against the liberalism. So that doesn't matter anymore. Either you belong to the left or to the right. If you fight against liberalism, against big capital, against capitalism, against hegemony, Western hegemony, that doesn't matter what are your motivations. If you are sincere in this fight, so you should be accepted like that. So that
you see this if you are sincere.
The logic of capitalism is the dehumanization and objectivation of the people, and that goes against the concept of social justice and organicity of life on the left side, and that goes exactly directly against the traditional value as church, family, soul, because the capitalism is materialist, individualistic ideology that denies the soul. If you make the soul something depending only on your decisions or something optional, so there is no more the human being, and everybody is turned into the objects, not into the subjects, but into the objects. So you can choose woman, you can choose men, you can choose children as a kind of object of exploitation, because there is no soul, there is no morality, there is no last judgment. All of that, all this traditional and leftist ideas of social justice, everything is destroyed in the modern days capital. And technology serves to control the people, to dehumanize the people. Technology, as Heidegger has shown, is not neutral. Technology is metaphysical thing. If you put all your confidence, all your being on the side of technology, you are losing your human part, your humanness, and that is not casual. It is not just the question of comfort. That is the serious decision to lose our human dignity, and that is against what the left and the right fights, and that is precisely against the roots of liberalism, because liberalism is rooted in the idea of the individualistic meaning of the man. The human being is considered to be individual, and individualism is idea that the real man is something that is totally liberated from any kind of collective ties, of any kind of collective belongingness, participation. So that is totally liberated from the society, community, culture, religion, civilization, language, values, and all that thing. And that gives us post-human entity. The pure individual is post-human, because the relations to humanity is already something not individual, something personal. And that is in the center of, for example, Russian religious philosophy, opposition between person and individual, because the person is not individual, the person is social fact. Person is the sum of the relations between the man and God, man and woman, man and the other man, man and society. The person is created by these relations, and individuality is something totally liberated from all these relations. So
exactly, and liberalism is destroying the relations.
Absolutely. Liberalism is objectivation, dehumanization, and that is why we should fight all kind of liberalism. Liberalism is absolute evil, and that geopolitically, this evil coincides with the sea power. That is
I think
a lesson of geopolitics.
I agree completely, and I'm even scared, but I will say it. I've seen you say it. Yes, maybe liberalism is the Antichrist. I'm not sure, but it's possible because it fits. So I think many people are afraid of changes and of, I don't know, maybe it's all about some people are so attached to Americanism and United States, but I don't know if that is why they resist the idea of the multipolar world. I don't understand why so many people get upset. Do you know
So
why?
multipolar world, because, for example, if we accept this idea of distributed heartland, geopolitics immediately become not horizontal but vertical. In all societies, there are globalists, liberals, a kind of global network of sea power that is present in elites and the people of the culture, of education, of the politics, of experts, and they try to impose on all societies this glorification of the individualism, of liberalism in all society, in Brazil as well as in Russia or in
Yes,
China, and all the people of the world, including Western societies. That is very interesting. That the Western people is on our side and not on their side, because they are victims of this subjugation of the
the
elites.
greatest victims, the
Absolutely.
biggest victims of liberalism are the ones who are its subjects on their own land.
Exactly. And they cut the roots of European cultures, of American cultures, with the antiquity, with the ancient wisdom, with the classical values of the West. So, first of all, the global elites, they destroy their own peoples. And after that, they try to expand, to project this extermination of the identities on all other territories. And in all the countries, in Brazil, in Latin America,
I
in
agree with the
Russia,
diagnosis, but the solution, I have no way. Like, should you teach? I think it would help. Homer, Plato, Aristotle, everybody needs to have this in school. How can you not know mythology of Greeks? My God, you have, everybody has to know this. But I don't know if it's enough. So, what, sir? What do you suggest we do in practice? Exactly. Like, do we go onto the streets and protest? I never thought that works. I'm not a protest person. So, what do we do to resist liberalism, capitalism, Americanism, colonization?
I think that we need to think and insist seriously on the multipolarity, which should understand all the reasons of the geopolitical changes, economical changes, cultural changes behind the BRICS. BRICS is
Yes, BRICS is very important for me in this live. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this, because I know my government now is left and they want approximation with Russia, but there is difficulty with discourse. But there shouldn't be, because the enemy is liberalism. So
exactly.
we can show them somehow. We have to show them.
Exactly. And at the same time, I think we need to transcend this breach between the left and right, because, for example, I'm receiving more and more the messages from the Bolsonaro people from Brazil, and they agree. Some of them are pupils and disciples of Olavo de Carvalho, who was the globalist, pro-liberal, but traditionalist somehow. So now I think that from the right, I receive, from Brazilian right, I receive more and more messages in favor of promoting multipolarity. And Bolsonaro himself, finally, to the end of his rule, was inclined in favor of this, of BRICS. And Lula is now demonstrating that Brazilian left, that I preferred always a little bit, Brazilian left, anti-globalist, anti-imperialist.
Our right is always too liberalist. They
Yeah,
are just too
exactly.
liberal.
Portugal is in favor of BRICS, and I think that real Brazilian right, not liberal, should go the same way, because this unification, uniting in favor of creating in Latin America independent civilization, independent independent from everybody, from us Russians, from Americans first of all, because we don't impose anything on you, and they do. The Americans try to submit you, try to make you a kind of slaves to their
They
ideology,
succeed.
to their
They
LGBT.
don't only try. They make it.
So we need the global resistance, global riot, global revolt against that. Not because maybe we love each other. For example, I love Brazil, to say the truth. I am very much in love of your music, of your culture. I am fascinated of your languages, of your history. So, but you don't need necessary to love Latin America in order to support this
Exactly.
common fight.
Maybe they hate Brazilians and think our race is bad. I don't even care. As long as you don't come colonize my country. It's fine if you hate me. But the Americans, they say they love me, but then they come and colonize me.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I think that Russian people normally don't know very much about Brazil and don't care. But if they would make an encounter with your culture, they will be fascinated. I'm absolutely sure.
I
And they
think the
will.
same is true. The opposite is true as well. Brazilians like Russians. The ones that I like the music. The I forgot the name. There's like a Bolshevik orchestra. I forgot the name. I really like some Russian songs. The song that became the Tetris song. I forgot the name. The Tetris song. I don't know. I really like Russian songs.
I am admirer of bossa nova, of Carlos Jobim, of Chico Barco de Holanda, and I really admire this great genius of Brazil and Brazil culture, Brazil understanding of the details, the shades of the feelings. So I'm in depth in my own cultural development for Brazil, but that doesn't matter. What is interesting? That doesn't matter at all. You can love Brazil, love Russia, or you'll be totally indifferent. So what you need to be enrooted, to have the roots in your own culture, defend it, develop it, and to fight against this destruction of any identity.
But how do we fight?
Chinese, Russian, that is what matters. Really matters only one thing: on what side you are, or on the side of humanity, or on the side of the modern capitalist hegemonic West. Humanity means for everybody, for every man and woman, something special and something concrete. Brazil humanity, Latin American humanity, African humanity, Islamic humanity, Indian humanity, Chinese humanity, Russian humanity, all that concrete, and all that is against this ideology, that's liberal ideology, globalist ideology that is imposed on all of us. So we need to fight, we need to revolt, we need to resist, not because we hate them, but because we love ourselves. That is totally different.
Need to be saved from themselves in the end. The Americans are not happy with what's happening with them. Clearly, It's not the people who are making that. But I wanted to ask you. Maybe it's a tougher question. I'm not sure, but it's from my friend Bruna Torley. Shout out to her. She likes Olavo, and she's one of the people who are a bit afraid of the Olavo people liking you so much. And I don't know why. I think it's a little bit funny, but she was a bit mad. But as my friend, I told her, then please, can you give me a proper question, not insulting or anything, so that I can pose to him and then be useful to your side. So what he was asking about is about theosophy of 19th century and Eurasian, the relation between Eurasianism and some sort of spiritual racism. I mean, I think there seems to be a fear of the Orthodox Church trying to take over other Christians. Do you have something to say about this?
Yes, I think I have made debates with Olavo de Carvalho. That was, in my opinion, absolutely failure because
No,
he
but
didn't.
Olavo fights with everyone, and everybody here knows this. Nobody in the world has not fought with Olavo de Carvalho. He can only engage with someone fighting. I showed him my master thesis. He never replied. He had nothing to fight with me. He only talks to you if he wants to fight. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So my idea that was the failure because that was not exchange of the arguments or visions or of ideas, but that was a kind of public relations, self-glorification from his point, and a kind of prejudices without deep knowledge of the opponent. That was the very shallow, and the books I don't like it at all. Never cited the book of our debates as a kind of something important for myself
It
because
became too personal.
absolutely, and that was totally incorrect. That was failure, because he didn't say something about his vision, coherent, and he prevented me to do the same and obliged me to fight back. And I don't like that at all. So that was a kind of misunderstanding. But
Yes,
what is important in Olavo de Carvalho? He was one of the first in Brazil to discover traditionalism. And traditionalism, Guénon, the works of Guénon and Evola, are of the absolute value. That is most revolutionary reading, in my opinion. And if someone have enough of the knowledge, enough of the intelligence in order to find to these authors, that already is good thing. That I think that is positive aspect of Olavo de
maybe
Carvalho.
just maybe just reading a bit of Evola, Alain de Benoit, and showing people would already be a start for the fight. Maybe.
Yes, and that is already c'est beaucoup. It's
Yeah, yeah.
already
I know.
great.
I know French. I know French.
That is a
It's a
great
lot.
thing. And if we are, because I, for myself, traditionalism is the main principle of my philosophy. How we apply these principles of traditionalism that rather divided us, because he somehow Olavo de Carvalho has seen in liberal American capitalist civilization some manifestation of tradition that goes
He sees
against
the light
yes,
in
but
the founding fathers. It seems like the founding fathers
absolutely.
are gods.
Guénon and Evola despised radically American democracy, liberalism, everything Western, modern, and that is totally in conflict with the main inspirations. So, but that is the kind of the right of Olavo de Carvalho to develop his own understanding of the initial inspirations, and that we diverged in that
Yes,
because
I read the debate, and I think most intelligent people from Brazil, they understand what happened. It was just a disagreement, and because of the temperament of Olavo, he's like that. So unfortunately, it happened, and it was a missed opportunity because we had a good thinker and another good thinker, and they could produce. That's why I don't like debates. Maybe debates work, but I prefer conversations, because maybe debates sometimes they become war, and then nothing of value can come from it. Let me see.
maybe you're right about temperaments, because for example I had conversation with Steve Bannon and much more fruitful. We disagreed on some topics. We geopolitics, for example, he was completely against my understanding of position in favor of Islam and in favor of China. But nevertheless, the conversation with Steve Bannon was very, very respectful, very profound. So we have exchanged the position sometime coinciding, sometime diverging, but with in totally different atmospheres. And Steve Bannon was a kind of friend of Olavo de Carvalho, and he has and had some common points with us, traditionalists from Eurasia. So that is interesting. So that is why I wouldn't absolutely make this conflict or this debate with Olavo de Carvalho something absolute.
Yes,
we have missed the real point of disagreements and the real points of agreement. So that was a kind of failure, just a failure.
I think instead of a failure, I would call there was a misunderstanding, which is when I had fights in school. Then they threw me to the directors. I said, no, it was a misunderstanding, because it's true. There was a misunderstanding.
So maybe the continuation of the kind of dialogue could be possible with the disciples of Olavo de Carvalho.
Yes, it's already possible. Many who like him, like you. I like him, I like you. Many people I know like him and like you. We know he has problems with you, but we don't care. We like him and we know his personality. He fights over everything. But
Absolutely.
On the left, do you know people from the Brazilian left beside Pepe Escobar who you are friends or close to?
So I have different people in Brazil with whom I communicate, not only Pepe Escobar, the very different group. I have my very close friend as Rafael Machado, and very interesting other Machado, Arturo Machado, who has made a good film on Brazilian TV. But as well, I have many left people.
That's what I wanted to know. Who on the left do you know besides Pepe? Do you have names that we can know?
So maybe they are not so famous as Pepe Escobar, but we are in exchange of the opinions. People in the left, for example, they agree with myself of the importance of Indian and African identities inside of Brazilian society. So I am in exchange, in communications with different people from the left, maybe not so famous as Pepe, but still there is a kind of permanent, very intensive, energetic relations between us and Brazil, with all the different people from all the political spectrum. For example, the people that are in favor of Lula, who support his fight against...
Who support BRICS?
BRICS, yes, and many other things. He is for sovereignty. And somehow, paradoxically, Bolsonaro was as well in favor of sovereignty of Brazil.
Both wanted the same sovereignty in theory.
Yeah, in theory, but the main idea, you cannot afford the real sovereignty for Brazil without unification of Latin America. So it is impossible. Brazil is great, big, powerful, strong, but not enough in order to create pole. You need all the rest of the South America. You need Argentina, first of all, as Getúlio Vargas.
I agree.
And General Peron, they saw the reason of why Brazil and Argentina should be united in the kind of Southern American bloc. That is the key.
I agree completely.
And that is why the adherence of the Argentine to the BRICS is so important in Johannesburg, and the liberal anti-American, Southern American, anti-Latin elements, Latin elements fight so hard against the adherence of the Argentine to BRICS inside of Argentina. They are not Peronist. They are not to the right or to the left. They are for Soros, and Soros is sea power. That is very important to link geopolitics with ideology. Soros is pure sea power. He is not in favor of the United States. He hates United States. He hates Trump, any kind of people who defend American identity. He is not pro-Israel. He is prohibited to come to Israel because he is against any kind of national state.
Yes, Israel is something very strange, that it's the country that prohibits, that cancels people the most. Noam Chomsky, my God, Noam Chomsky was so famous. He's a huge philosopher. He's Jewish, but he says, no, I don't like Israel. Banned forever. Nobody listens to him anymore for 40 years. Oh my God.
But with the case of Chomsky, he is against Israel, he is anti-Zionist, it is
he pushes
more or less understanding. But Soros is as well. Chomsky is leftist anti-Zionist, and Soros is against all kind of identities. Against Jewish identity, against American identity, against Brazilian and Argentine identity, against Islamic identity, against Russian and Chinese identity. That is idea of pure sea power. So Soros...
Yes, you can see in Europe on the public buildings, the political public, you cannot use a cross. They say, oh, all religions are welcome. Oh yeah, but the woman cannot use the Islamic cloth. The man cannot use a cross. The Jewish man cannot use the hat. You have to dress as a secular. So secularism is already a religion and it's mandatory. You have to obey it. So that's why I see, well, maybe it's the Antichrist, because it's prohibiting you from exerting your religion and you have to obey them. It's weird.
In our opinion, in Russia is example of totally contrary attitude. For example, if you are religious, you can demonstrate cross. You could make your public prayers as if you are Muslims, or you can freely to have all the Jewish traditional signs on yourself. Nobody cares, and everybody respects this decision. If you are not religious, nobody cares as well. So that is not secularism. It is Eurasianist alliance of traditions. So
I also think about this in terms of, some people say, no, it's religious. But I think, no, tradition, it's the word. Because some places have their religion and we don't want to impose our religion on them. Maybe it's the proper religion for them. I don't want to change everything. Their fathers and forefathers and grandfathers, they were always following that. So let them follow that. We don't want to destroy that.
Exactly. Absolutely. And that is tradition. Tradition is the key word. And that was the beginning of our conversation, our relations with Olavo de Carvalho, when his disciples have suggested to me to speak with him. The idea was, you are both traditionalists. If someone declares himself or herself traditionalist, so I am already convinced that that is something positive, something interesting. I consider the core value of tradition is sacredness. To consider something as sacred, and sacred means more than human. So that is the feeling and the meaning of transcendence. So transcendence is the key word for the definition of tradition, in my opinion. For example, what is transcendent in us? The soul. We will die and the soul will live.
There's a man called Hans Hermann Hoppe. You know him? He was Habermas. He was a student of Habermas, but he went to the other side of the force. And he says, well, maybe those who have no children shouldn't even vote. Why would they care about the future? They would just choose what's best now, and later we will be destroyed. So maybe we need a link with time, and maybe family, that's why it has to be a core.
That's a good idea, because the children's, they are the dimension of the future inside of the present, and the family is continuation of the past. The previous generations, they live in the family respecting their memory and creating new children and giving them heritage, because the family is cultural unity, not biological. It is social, religious. In Russia, in our Orthodox tradition, we are calling the family the small church. That is the common name, small church, because in the evangel that is said that when one or two or three are gathered in my name, I am with them. So not with one, only two or three.
Now we leave, Roger Scruton called it serial monogamy. Most decent people with money and all, it's not that they are doing orgies, it's that they are doing the serial monogamy. They have a one partner, then they divorce, and then they get another, and then they divorce. So I forgot what the problem with that was.
They are using the people, these atomized individuals are using each other as objects. That is the problem. That's objectification.
It weakens them.
In German, that is named Vertümlichung, the transformation in the things and not living entities. So that is precisely this atomization. The family is the last ultimate elements of sacrality. You can, yes, exactly. But we need to, in order to be effective, to create effective alternative to the capitalism, we should not only criticize the results of new development of they are evidently anti-normal, so monopoly, kind of artificial demand, and all the tricks used now by monopolies in order to submit markets, submit societies to their will. But we need to get to the origins, to the root of that. The liberal capitalist idea, the liberal capitalism, from the very beginning was formed and created on the wrong premises. That relations, the production of the goods and the exchange is the private deal, private affair. So if you are buying something or producing something or exchanging something, it is up to you to do that. So
the societies recognize this. For instance, they prohibit the traffic of some substances or traffic of some stuff without proper legislation. So the governments do know that the exchange of things has an impact, but they pretend they don't know when it's about open market and letting everybody be colonized by cultures. This is
yes, the double standard from the beginning. For example, Adam Smith has suggested his liberal idea inside of England British Empire. So it was pretended to be universal, but that was inside of British Empire. That it's itself pretended to be universal. So there were already double standards from the beginning of the capitalism. But the idea to isolate economical activity of the person, isolate from all kind of social repercussions, the social relations, that was wrong, because the activity, economic activity of one person is embedded in the very complicated structure of the society, of the politics, in the hierarchy, and some meaning, cultural meaning of the products, of some procedure. And idea to isolate that, to put that in a very rational, mathematical, physical, atomistic level was wrong from very beginning. And that has led normally, logically, to these perversions that everybody remarks in the modern total injustice of the global market. So the market could exist and should exist in society, but not against all other social aspects of the society, not isolated from the social justice, cultural relations, hierarchy, traditions, values. So the economical activity should be embedded in the society, recognizing the value and importance of the other aspects. But when we say, oh, the market discounts everything, so nothing is important except the transactions and the fundamentals between the demand.
So technology, I think, is something we can't underestimate. For instance, I studied that in 1850, there was a big change in health for women giving birth. That alone changed so much, because now, in the old days, there was such a risk. You will do adultery and the woman will die. There's a lot of risk for her. But now the worst that can happen is she will have a baby outside of marriage. So she actually accepts, and it became more normalized, adultery, because of improvements with medicine, and also improvements with the pill, having control over reproduction, everything. You can say no, but we want that. It's good. It's technology. But those technologies which are useful and we want them, they make somehow, we say liberalism destroyed, but it's not that liberalism is not like a person, So it's that the technology created under liberalism keeps messing everything up, it seems. And I don't know how to protect ourselves from that. How to protect from technologies that change everything.
So the idea is that we have already said that. So technology is something different from technology itself. So we need to discover metaphysical dimension of technology. Technology is alienation. That meaning the essence of the technology is alienation between the man and the world. And any tool is any tool, developed, sophisticated or not, is a kind of something between the human being, the subject, and the object. And that is why that, for example, in the traditional society, the tool is very, very special kind of object. Sometimes the tools had a name. For example, not only the tools as horses, so they had names, personal names. Yes, exactly. So the tool is half human, half object. And
I have a Glamdrig. I have the sword from Gandalf. In my back there, I have the Glamdrig, the sword of Tolkien, Gandalf.
Exactly. Why? Because our ancestors living in traditional society, they're very careful, very attentive to the tool as such. It was and should be half human, half already not human. So we need to exercise to creating the tool. We need that is technique. Creating the tool, technical mean. We need to be very careful. We need to follow some rules, some special operations in order to exercise, defend from negative aspect of the objectiveness. So we need to that is sacred. The technique should be sacred and it should be limited.
Have you read Dune from Frank Herbert? Do you know the book Dune? Because he has something that I really enjoyed the concept, the Butlerian Jihad. They simply ban all machines that do human work for thousands of years. And I confess that makes some sense to me, but it's hard to enforce. I mean, Japan managed to ban guns, but how can he do it? Because he's strong. Nobody will invade Japan. Nobody even wants to invade Japan because there's not even it's so many mountains. So they could actually use guns and then de-arm the population and go back to swords, and it was fine. But it's very hard to roll back a technology. So no, let's not use iPhones anymore. iPhones are bad. Let's ban them. It's really hard to make it happen. So maybe we have to make new technologies to counter the technologies that makes things go wrong.
So the Oswald Spengler has used a very interesting term, unchained technique, unfesselte Technik in German. So that was idea. If we let the technique, the tools get out from our control, from our human control, human observance, servants. So it becomes demonic. So I think that new technology we still think we use. We are servants of iPhones. We don't use iPhones. iPhones use us, and it comes very quietly. So still, that is more comfortable. More. The speed is greater. It is easier to manipulate. But it is surface that there is the kind of revolt of the things, of the tools, and the tools try to overcome us, to control us, and that is invisible occupation, colonization of the humanity by the technology, and that human being is considered now as the machine. So we could put our consciousness on the cloud server. So we need to transform some parts of our organs in the machines.
Of ourselves as machine. People treat themselves as machines. They say, no, we need to rest because we need to work, and then they need to sleep, and then they need to do this and that, treating themselves like a machine. Even when they do, for instance, they go drink. Oh, no, I have to drink because then I have to relax on Saturday and on Sunday so I can work properly on the first day.
And when they say that a machine will rule the world, as Kurzweil, Harari, with singularity, his topic, in order to do that possible, we need first to turn the humans into the machine, and only after that you could pretend that machine will rule. Machine could rule only over other machines, and we are transformed into the machines before this singularity, because our understanding of humanity today is purely technical. We consider our organs as a kind of tools, a kind of mechanical instruments. So
Deleuze says about this that our organs are now.
Yes, our organs are considered to be machines. For example, the hand should be used to take. So, for example, some inner organs to transform what the people eat into some useful substances. We
have to calculate.
Absolutely, and we could calculate if we accept that human being is kind of machine. So all the rest, that was said by La Mettrie, l'homme machine, in the 7th century. So we are living in the world of the living machines, of human machines, more than 300 years. So we are totally ready for it, prepared.
I think I already crossed the border. But there's a thinker, I don't know if you know him, he's a French man. He's very old. He's called Edgar Morin. You know him?
Yes.
An anthropologist. Yes. He's older than 100 years old and is still okay. I hope we get there. But he has a very interesting theory of anthropology because he studied robotics to understand humanity. And then he counters something that we are saying like this. He sees that we were always transhuman in a sense. That we are always the species who keeps transcending itself through technology. I don't know what to do with this information. It's just, I think it's relevant.
Yes, exactly. So we transcend ourselves, but not in the to the highest level.
But, well, it seems he dropped. I hope he comes back or I can get to talk to him. Oh, you're back, sir. I know you have to go now, but maybe we can have some last comments. Do you want to say something for last? But I have also a last question.
Okay. I would like to finish. Sorry for this.
No, I'm sorry.
Communicational problems. I would like to finish my previous sentence. So we think we are coming to some superhuman position, combining our being with machines, but in the reality we are coming to subhuman status. So we are losing our humanity, our essence, our identity, and we are proceeding suicide of the species, of the human species. So that is why the technology is of such importance. It is a key importance. We need to think what technology, what the tool really is.
Thank you. And what I wanted to ask is from Catarina Leiros. She's a friend. I don't know if you know her. She's a friend of Rafael, Catarina Leiros. And she asked me something that I don't know and I found interesting. I know Nietzsche divided in Dionysiac and Apollinian, but you have a triad, right? You have Cybele and Dionysian and Apollinian, right? Can you explain that to us? It seems very interesting. The symbolism.
Okay, that is the basis of my own culturological approach. So I have developed the idea of the existence of three logos. For example, Nietzsche has discerned two ways to understanding being, the philosophy, the culture, the politics, the relations between humans, Apollinian and Dionysian. And when I have started to apply this Dionysian approach to the philosophy, step by step, I have arrived to the conclusion that in the Dionysian field, there are many authors and many searchers, they include something very different. So on one side, the kind of the balance between the matter and the spirit, the heaven and hell, the center and the periphery, but at the same time, in the same field of Dionysian logos, they include something totally different. The idea of the power of the darkness of create matter, darkness, mother that creates itself all the rest. So that was one hand purely the Dionysian balance, dialectical balance between the spirit and matter, and the other hand there was the pure materialism, and this type, third type, neither Apollinian nor Dionysian, I have called Cybele, Cybelean attitude, so great mother as the third logos. And after that, I have applied in my researches of different civilizations these three approaches to different societies. And the result was...
In what book? So we can look for...
I have read, basing on this attitude, 24 volumes of my Noomachia. 24.
Oh, it's the Noomachia.
Noomachia, and that is totally based on these three logos, three approaches applied to the different civilizations, to European, Chinese, Semitic, African, Amerindian, Indian, and in Oceania, Russia, obviously. And the result was so special, so unsuspected for myself. It was that was not just projection of my some prejudices or some preconcept. That it was really the kind of open research, and I have discovered the traces and the elements of all three logos in all the cultures, in all the small ethnical group can possess all three logos, all three type of the ontology, anthropology, theology, mythology, and so on.
I will really look for that book, because I've read the books that, as I said, I read all your books that Amazon, which is really funny. Amazon told me you existed and kept throwing me books, so I read Fourth Political Theory and everything. I learned about Leviathan versus Behemoth. In one of your books, you were telling, I think, Chesterton, telling the story of Carthage versus... So that's how I was introduced, and it was the best account of the thing that I saw. I never... In what book of Chesterton is this? I never found the original book.
That is called the Eternal Man. Eternal Man. he has used this metaphor of the fight between Rome and the Carthage as the key to understand the Western civilization.
We have Schiller. Have you heard Schiller does this? It's not easy to find his work in Portuguese, but I know he has a poem where he says it's basically Spartans and Athenians, like the orderly and rigid and collective, and the Athenian, which is the individualist. And but it seems kind of Behemoth versus Leviathan, but it's
exactly. That was the other great dualistic version, Sparta against Athenians, and that was used by Halford Mackinder as well. So I agree absolutely that is two types of civilization. But in my 24 volumes Nomachia research, it is deeper and still deeper, still more paradoxal, because I'm using as well geopolitical attitude, but I don't reduce everything to this. So I'm trying to find the combinations, a different type of combinations, changing in the time. That is interesting. We could not say, oh, this culture is Apollinian, this culture is Dionysian, this culture is Sabellian. All three logos are present in all known to us civilizations, small or great, local or global.
Can I ask a last question about that in the applied theory? Do you know Thebes, the city of Oedipus? Thebes from the ancient mythology, where Oedipus did what he did. In the beginning, the city was founded, and I always saw Thebes as the behemoth, because the guys there, half of them, they were born of the earth. Literally, so they are as non-Leviathanic as possible. But then they are destroyed by Dionysus because they don't have a balance with the Dionysic element. So Dionysus goes there. He does nothing. He's just there dancing. They throw his women into jail. He unlocks them. And then he bans them and kills them or whatever. He burns the whole city. So you have to somehow have a balance between the Apollinian and Dionysiac. And then where does Cybele enters in the situation of Thebes? Do you have, maybe there's no way, but can you see somewhere?
Absolutely. Cybele, it is the kind of autochtonians. So the people born from the earth without the presence of the heavenly elements, without the father, without the hero, without
Creon. I think Creon descends from them.
Yes,
so
yes,
they
exactly.
are the Cybele element.
Giants, for example, in Greek mythology, giants and titans, battle of giants. Giants were born from the Mother Earth without any heavenly power. So that is interesting. So Sibyllian version of logos, of culture, we could find everywhere. For example, we are living in the Sibyllian civilization, feminist, maternalist, materialist. So it is a kind of materialism. Atomism is Sibyllian, because it is based on the idea that everything is created, is built on the basis on something exterior, elements existing without order, without harmony, outside of our spirit, and the spirit is the result of some combinations of atoms. That from the beginning of Democritus and Levki and Epicureans and Lucrezia Carr, that came into the modern science, and now it is dogma. We are living in Sibyllian world, and Apollinian elements and Dionysian elements are secondary, are peripheral. They are in kind of opposition, above all Apollinian. We have arrived to the civilization of the total discreditation of everything linked to Apollo.
Yes.
Of God. It is kind of, because everything that is linked to Apollo is considered, judged today, politically incorrect. So
you can see the beauty of war. Men always knew the beauty of war for many millions of years, and now suddenly 10 years ago it's evil. Of course we don't want war, but it happens, and it's also beautiful in a way. people destroyed that. So I think
Yes.
Apollo was the one who they just Apollo was the first to fall, and now Dionysus, even Dionysus, because they want to regulate, like Dionysus. To be Dionysic would be, I don't know, everybody partying and doing orgies, but that's not even what the new people are doing. They're making rules. You see the women marching on the streets naked. In Russia, they don't let them do that, but in Brazil, they let. And do you know what they write in their bodies? I still don't want you. So they're not even being Dionysiac. They're being Siberian. They go around naked, dancing, saying that I will not reproduce or do anything with you. I will not unite.
Exactly. There's nothing Dionysian in that. That is the pure self-sufficiency of the Great Mother. That she pretends she could give birth to everybody without a father. That is a kind of devilish, satanic perversion of the Christian dogma. So that is, we are living in the great parody. And Sibyllian elements, giants, titanic elements are around us. So we are living inside of that. And I think that Apollinian is not only the war. Apollinian is vertical, is axis. That is in harmony. That is the order. That is hierarchy. That is the pure light accepted as a kind of column that unites the sky and the earth. And that is Apollinian. That is the kind of order, the measure, the knowing of the essence and the glorification of the transcendentality and all submission of all the secondary to what is the really principle. That is Apollinian. And Dionysus is the kind of game, of play, of dialectic. So on one moment you are on the side of the heaven, and on the other side moment you are on the side of the earth. There is tango, this Argentinian tango,
yes, I love
or Brazilian bossa nova. When you follow the line melody in Brazilian bossa nova, you don't know, you have no idea when it could end. It could go this way or that way. That is a kind
you have
of
improvisation of guitar also.
Absolutely,
yes,
and the harmony. Jobim has created desafinado. Desafinado. I think that is more Dionysian element. So you could not presume where the melody will go on.
So you really know Brazilian music. That's interesting. You really know. I only know Poliushka Polie. Poliushka Shiroka Polie. That's the only Russian song I know.
Great.
Thank you very much. If you want to say anything else, you're free. And thanks a lot for your presence. It was a great honor. I hope we can talk again in private or public. You are always welcome in my channel. And thank you, Rafael Machado, for making this happen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dugin. Thank you, public.
Obrigado.
Spasiba.